For the last year and a half, we've had the privilege of having a doctor now, Eugen Lee. She came in her doctoral program and then came and received her doctorate from University of Houston. And I've asked her, she shared a story with the choir just a couple of weeks ago. I've asked her to share it with us today, part of her story.
Hi, my name is Eugen Lee, and I've been here and being loved, and it's great. I just wanted to share a little about how I met God in my life. I started going to church at 6. I also started playing piano at 6. I started playing piano in the church at 11, and then on I've been a musician at the church serving the Lord. However, I did not meet the Lord then. I was really diligently working hard at the church, thinking that I could earn my own salvation by working hard for the church, but it never really happened. I was also going for music to become a very famous pianist, and I wanted all the fame for myself. I was trained from a very young age to become a musician, so I was going the right direction. But as I went on with my youth years and my college years, I was being successful in the music world, but I was still not saved. I was in church, playing every Sunday, and doing all the work I could, teaching Bible studies, choirs, and everything, but never was saved. And as my other world being the musician, so I had totally separate two worlds, school and music, and then the church life. I made the wrong choices because being a musician is very difficult. I have to fight in the practice room all by myself. 8 to 10 hours, how many hours, I don't know, but I was in the practice room in my own world creating music, and on stage with all the applauses and everything, how glorious it was. Behind there was the utmost loneliness and emptiness that was never fulfilled. And I chose to start drinking to get over this. And to be honest with you, I think I was in the stage of being addicted because I could not go on with a single day of a sip of a drink or so. And it went on. It was very bad. I know some of you guys are making faces now, but and then when I was 19, something terrible happened to me because of heavy drinking. I don't know what happened. I passed out. I woke up in my bed next morning, but I couldn't move my hand, my right hand. And I still remember that moment. I woke up, I wasn't able to move. I was really scared to look at it. I didn't even know if it was there. So I looked and it was there, but I couldn't move my thumb area. I don't know how I injured it, but because of drinking and falling, I did something to my thumb. And I was raised in a very, very strict family. I was not able to tell my parents about it. In Korea, the insurance system and stuff works kind of differently, so I was able to go to the doctor by myself. I just told my mom, I'm the second child, I'm very independent, I just take care of my own stuff. I just said I just needed some therapy because my back hurts of practicing. And I went to get acupuncture, therapy, rehab, but they just could not find what was wrong with it. And I think if I were a little more clever and asked help for my parents, they might have had a better idea, but I was not able to be cured. And for about 2 years or so, I could not reach about an octave, and I was still playing piano. So that internal wound is still here. But that didn't stop me from drinking. I went on. It even got worse. And I fell another time 2 years later, hurting my left hand. And this time, the injury was bad. It showed. I couldn't hide from my mom. And she took me to the hospital immediately, and we had surgery. So this hand was healed. I have a scar here. If you can look up close, you can see that. But I have both of my hands wounded because of the bad habit I had. And then I came to the United States to study for my grad school, and the drinking did not stop because here, no parents, no family. I was free, but I was more lonely. And so there were so many days that I would be drinking and driving, not even knowing how I got home. But I'd wake up in bed, and my car's in the parking lot. It was so scary if I think about it now, but that's how my life was, because I don't know. I didn't know the Lord. I did try to seek, but never found him. I never knew that Jesus could be your friend, and he could be so close to you. I thought he was far away, and he would judge me. And so I lost all hope, but still playing for church. I would be drinking all night and come to a Sunday service and play like nothing had happened and stuff. And that's how my life was until I got married and went through a lot of hardship. I had very, very complicated 2 pregnancies. My first 2 girls, I had the choice to abort, but I did not. I carried on, and in the darkness, the darkest place, I even was tempted to commit suicide several times because my life was just really difficult. And instead of that, one day I crawled and went to church, and all I could say is that, Lord, I'm here, and I need you. And I said that for days and days and days. I chose a day to go to church early at 6 in the morning. The doors are open. I was there praying. And in the darkest, it was very dark too, in the deepest hour, I finally met him and realized that he was always with me. And then I started praying for my 2 hands. Well, my one hand, which was healed, so this hand, because I still had pain. And I decided to pray at a certain time every day for 2 years. And it did not cure the way I wanted it to be. And by then I was so filled with the grace of God that I knew that even if it does not heal completely, it would be okay, because I still can play piano. And sometimes I need to take my break and rest and stuff. But I know who I used to be whenever I play. It's right here, this area. Yes, I feel it now. Every single note I hit with my thumb, I feel it. But it reminds me who I was, and it reminds me what God did to me. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
I'm Gary, and I'm a grandfather of 2.
Hi, I'm Darren Doherty, and I'm married to Shelley.
Hi, I'm John Cates, and I'm a member here at Sugarland Baptist, and really proud to say that. Really graced to say that too. People always ask, well, why is this guy talking? Well, I have a kind of varied story. Everybody has one. Mine it's what it is. I'm just a goober, a guy who at 8 years old accepted Christ. It was real. At 24 years old, was arrested for sales and possession of 10 ounces of heroin. A school teacher, had done everything bad that you can know. Stood in front of a judge after the arrest and faced 90 years in prison. Somewhere in that, returned to the grace of God and was graced by Christ and his example. Began a change, and then had an opportunity to come and work in the field of substance abuse, and have done that now for, this is 37 years. Well, I ended up running a program, started it about 28 years ago rather, 24 of which, by the way, this church has supported the ministry. It's called Lifeway. We have reached all over the world. I was trying to gauge how many families, how many people have we reached with the love of God. We know it's well over 100,000 people, and truly all over the world. It's a substance abuse program, and I've gotten to watch God change people's lives. This church, for 24 years, has hosted a part of it and supported that effort. This church has reached all of those people all over the world. Speaking a little bit more about some of the things we're doing right now, with the use of alternative peer groups with adults, it's opened up the chance to reach out to folks who are suffering from other physical maladies besides substance abuse. One of the greatest challenges to medical science is how do you get someone who has a heart problem or a liver problem or a kidney problem to stop using mind-changing chemicals, especially alcohol, of course, in this culture, but all of them. And how difficult it is, because just like somebody who has a substance abuse problem won't quit because they're on probation, they also won't quit because they're physically hit. In fact, they want to quit even less because they're more afraid. They lean on it even more. Well, the method that Lifeway uses, that this church has helped to develop in its support, is specifically and specially designed to fit those needs of physical medicine. So a brand new organ health integration program has we don't know how many people it's going to reach, but we know that it could be millions. In addition to that, we've also found that many of the issues in a workplace with folks who are, say, families in a workplace who are suffering from substance abuse also could use this same kind of ongoing family education, support, intervention, and love. This God-centered program that Sugarland Baptist and the people here have built up. When I want to say thanks, it's thanks for being God's hands. All this time, a quarter of a century, this church has reached out to me. I came here as a young man, and I've watched this church do miracles in my life and so many others. What a joy to live a life in this congregation.
Just a few words, what would it be? Here's mine. I've asked some friends to share with us as well. Mary's been in the choir about 4 years now. Tracy, her husband, has been on many committees, serving now on the personnel committee. I want them to share a little bit of their story.
Okay, well, I have these notes here. First of all, I really never wanted to have a big story. I remember hearing testimonies when I was younger about people, with drug addictions and alcohol problems and broken families and, people been in prison and gotten saved and all of that. And I thought, you know what, I'm very happy not to have a story. But I did end up with a situation that not only emotionally changed me, but spiritually made me really question many of the core beliefs that I had held strongly to. I had given my life to Christ at 8 years old, and I was raised in a strict, fundamental Christian home. I had done, just like many of you, Bible drill and Awanas, and been in church every time the doors were opened, church camp and Sunday school. Went to Baylor, married a man that worked for them at the time, and he was from a good family with both parents BSF leaders, Bible study fellowship. I had done the right thing. I had followed the rules. I had taken that expected path. But then something unexpected happened, and after 13 years of marriage, my whole life changed in an afternoon. It was a really rough day, and that afternoon I found out that we no longer had a job. We had 2 separate lawsuits filed against us, and there were years and years of secrets that were now being revealed. It was 1998, and I was living in Chicago, a beautiful suburb of Chicago. And I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 young children and a third one on the way. And my marriage was in trouble. The events of that day left me shocked and heartbroken and very afraid, and eventually very angry. I was now divorced, and I felt betrayed by God. How was I to be forgiven, and how was I to forgive? After a lot of prayer and counseling and support from my local church there in Chicago, which I'm convinced I was there for just this experience, I slowly began to heal and believe again in that personal relationship with Christ. I had not been forsaken by God. I had not been lied to by God. And God would love me no matter what. Eventually I moved back to Texas and began attending this church, and I was immediately welcomed and accepted here as a divorced mother of 3. No one acted surprised or shocked when I came, and they just led me to a Sunday school class that I fit in, and it was here that I met Tracy. And after a lot of numerous panicky phone calls to Pastor Phil, and a lot of visits with him, he convinced us that we could get married, and we began the not always easy process of blending a family of 7. So I'm gonna let you go.
I was also divorced. I was married for 12 years, and it was the toughest thing I ever went through. I was in depression. There were days that I didn't want to get out of bed, and I questioned, why God would let something like that happen to me. But I tell you what, our God is a God of second chances. And one day I was reading my Bible, and I came across Isaiah 43:18, and it says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert, and I'm making streams in the wasteland." And that's what God is doing for me right now with Mary. I have 2 of my own sons, and then we have 3, she has 3 children, so we have a house full of kids, 5 kids. 2 are in college right now, 1's in high school, and 2's in middle school. But there are churches that if you've ever been divorced, they won't let you serve in leadership. They won't let you serve as a deacon. But this church isn't like that. And if you look at the Bible, And if you look at the people God has chosen, these people weren't exactly perfect people. But my goal is that I can be a vessel. One of my favorite verses is 1 Corinthians 1:4, that during our time of suffering, that God was able to comfort us, and that we can comfort people with the same type of love that God gave us. And we've been leading a divorce care class. We've taken a dynamic marriage class. We've taught an ABF class. But I want y'all to know that there is life after divorce if you've ever been there. And I don't want anyone to feel like that they're not worthy to serve the Lord. Because if you're after God's own heart, God can use you.
And in John 16:33 reminds us that in this life we will have trouble, but take heart, he has overcome the world. Although the pain of divorce was almost unbearable at times, and there are still consequences to deal with, God has remained faithful. Our desire as a couple is to glorify God with our experience and to show others that there is restoration and hope in knowing Christ personally. And now I'm incredibly thankful and happy that I have a story.
I'm going to ask Debbie Taylor to come. She shared an interesting story with me a month ago that I could relate to, and I wanted her to share it with you as we go into this time of invitation.
I grew up in Florida in a divided home. My mother was a Christian, Southern Baptist, and my dad was a committed and determined atheist. And that's the way it remained. In the early 80s, my mother was diagnosed with a form of leukemia that was uniformly fatal at that time. So for the next 20 months, she was in and out of hospitals and very ill. The members of her church came to visit her frequently, and because she was often in isolation or in intensive care, they ended up spending a lot of time with my dad. This was not a comfortable situation. He did not want to talk to them. He definitely did not want to pray with them. But they persisted, and over the months that went by, he began to develop some friendships. After my mother died, I found out that my dad had started attending church on Sunday. And then about a year later, he called me and told me that he had accepted Jesus as his Savior and he had been baptized. Wow, he was 48 years old. 6 months later, my dad died from a massive heart attack. And when my brother called to tell me that this had happened, I was shocked. And then suddenly, I was stunned because I realized what God had done. He had worked through those terrible days of my mom's illness to change my dad's heart. And he did that through those church members that kept coming back, even though he didn't want them to be there at first. Those men and women let God work through them to save my dad's life. And my dad is in heaven now, and that's a miracle. You never know what God can do through you if you give him the opportunity. Thank you.
Our friends David and Jean Ann have been helping in the music ministry for many years. He has a very interesting story to share.
In June of 2011, there was an event that changed my life forever. I've always been a Christian, and I was baptized when I was 12. But I think most of it was head knowledge. I had heard all of the stories. I had read the stories about Jesus' love. But it wasn't something that was really rooted in my heart. In that June, I found that there was a tumor in the orbit of my eye. And it was determined that it was renal cell carcinoma, which is cancer, kidney cancer. After some additional scans, it was also determined that it was also in my lungs. But the scanning that they did Didn't show it was anywhere else. I had radiation on the eye, and for the most part, it was totally successful. The tumor lay along the optic nerve, but it was not damaged. I tolerated it with ease. At this time, I'm thinking, that's not a problem, we'll take the lungs. I mean, you hear of all the advances in cancer. So I'm sitting there very optimistic, talking to the doctor. And I can still remember his voice as the oncologist talks to me and says, "You don't seem to understand. What you have is not curable. At best, it is treatable. Most people die in the first year." At that moment, I was sad, but I really wasn't devastated. God was already working in my heart. He placed the peace that He can give us in my heart and was preparing me for what is to come. There was a calmness and awareness that God was truly in my life. And the prayers of all my friends and family members certainly has helped. Talking about how God has helped me in all of this, I had 14 treatments of radiation. I have had 14 weeks of daily chemo. I have had 54 weeks of intravenous chemo. I have tolerated that extremely well, better than the doctors would have thought. And I tell the doctors, no, it's not just a mistake or it's not a happenstance. It is God working through my life. He has given me the ability to deal with what I have. I pray that every day that I will be healed. But more than that, I continue to pray that God will give me the ability to deal with my problems. And what also He has given me is He gave me the ability to share. I have seen doctors, nurses, technicians, patients, and their families. I try to present myself as a Christian and what their troubles are or what their problems. And I don't tell them it's like, oh man, I have a great life, I feel good. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for the fact is that there is a peace that is out there. And if you ever think that you have it rough, go down to the Mays Clinic on the 7th floor in the CT lab. There are people there that are sick. It is full of people that have hurt, pain, and have this helplessness that they don't know what to do. There's several verses that I cling to. In John 14, peace I give you, my peace I give you. Do not give it to you as this world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled and do not be afraid. And then in Philippians 4, let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, give thanksgiving with presenting to your Lord. And the peace of God, which transcends all understandings, will guard your heart and your minds in Jesus Christ. That's the kind of peace that I have. And even our deacon group, and Joan Spitz is back here, the deacon group came and prayed over me, where it says in James, let them call the elders of the church and pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. What a wonderful experience with my family and some deacon bodies to actually pray over you. What a wonderful experience. And then in Deuteronomy 31, the Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And He goes before you. That's what I felt. I didn't know what the answer, what it was going to be, what the diagnosis was going to be, but He knew, and He was already preparing my heart. There's one little I get several devotionals, and there was one thing in there that I really enjoyed. One of them, it says, "Hope motivates us to stay alive. While faith is essential to our relationship with God and others, hope energizes us not to give up. When hope is lost, so is the desire to live." We have to continue to hope. I have to continue to hope. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'll put it this way. As I saw one of the doctors, she opened the door and she says, "You're still alive." My daughter said, that's bad. I said, no, you know what? I got the opportunity to say, yes, I have good doctors, good medicine, but above all, I have a God and the prayers of others that are helping me through this. The song that we're getting ready to sing is called "Never Alone." Listen and hear the words. That song really is my testimony.